I'm Helene Florio, and I'm the president of the Holyoke Taxpayers Association, and I welcome you to what is going to be the last debate for the two candidates for mayor before our election on November 2nd. I have a couple of housekeeping rules that I'm going to run through. You may already be aware of them, but it never hurts to have the reminders. The first thing is that with the sound system set up tonight, we are also taping in Spanish, and we particularly request that you keep your phones off because it really messes up with the sound system. They're in another room, it's all being fed through, so please be respectful of that. You will find bathrooms out in the hallway straight across for the men and down to the left for the women. And if you do go to leave the room for any reason, please be quiet, particularly opening and closing the doors. To those of you who are here in the audience, we thank you so much for joining us here. Please be respectful of your candidates' time. We have a lot to accomplish tonight, and disruptions to either candidate are not fair to anyone. The moderator tonight reserves the right to request anyone interrupting to be removed by our local law enforcement officers. We really don't want this to have to happen. We welcome two candidates to the stage tonight in the order of which they were elected. Please welcome to the stage Michael Sullivan and Joshua Garcia. Gentlemen, you can take your seats. Thank you. Holyoke Taxpayers thanks both gentlemen for putting their names in contention. It isn't easy. We thank you for wanting to lead this great community. Joining Holyoke Taxpayers Association as we volunteer to bring true and accurate information to our voters, we thank tonight's sponsors, without whom this would not happen. A big thank you to the Holyoke School Department, the Holyoke Fire Department, the Holyoke Police Department, Massachusetts International Festival of the Arts, or MIFA, Holyoke Media, particularly Scott McPherson, who is working the sound system tonight and broadcasting live, Jeffrey Trask, who is here on the stage, and he's going to be live streaming on the Holyoke Taxpayers Facebook page, which is open to everyone. And tucked away in the back room is Stephanie Rivera, who is here doing translation services. And I would like to also introduce and welcome to the stage our moderator, the one and only Anthony Tony Signoli. I could find a book on Tony, and he asked me to be brief in my introduction. Tony is the president of the A.L. Signoli Company, which is a public relations, political, and governmental affairs company he founded in 1992. The company serves political and corporate clients across America. He is also president of the Anthony L. Signoli Associates, Incorporated. He's built a reputation creating success for both political and corporate clients in challenging situations. The firm is recognized for a holistic approach to public and governmental affairs solutions with an understanding of how to utilize modern applications of data mining, polling data, and social media. Tony's corporate clients have included a diverse group from Tomorrow.io, Hilton Hotels, El Paso Energy Ventures, AT&T, Verizon, Tennessee Gas, Petro Peru, Hard Rock International, Eastman, Ford, Green Thumb Industries, and Suffolk Construction, amongst others. Tony personally and both of his companies conduct, contribute, and guide pro bono services in excess of $1 million annually to numerous charitable and philanthropic endeavors throughout America. We are very lucky to have him with us tonight. Welcome, Tony.
Thank you very much, Helene. Thank you. And thank you all for being here this evening. Good for you all to be here, very much so. We will begin tonight with a 2-minute long opening statement from each of Holyoke's candidates for mayor. After the opening statements, we will begin the debate discourse with 3 Lincoln Douglas-style questions. Each candidate will be asked all 3 of the questions. When asked the question, the candidate will have 2 minutes to respond. There will then be a 1-minute response from the other candidate, followed by the original candidate questioned having a 1-minute rebuttal. A reminder to the candidates, the debate committee decided that the moderator may reserve the right to go back after rebuttals if it is felt that the candidate did not answer the question. From the debates I've seen so far, I'm not going to have to do that at all tonight, so thank you both. Our goal is to avoid an answer being not relative to the question, but again, I don't think we're going to have that problem at all tonight. Before stepping on the stage this evening, a coin toss determined that which candidate would be the first to answer, and that was called by Josh Garcia. After the first question, the next question will be answered by candidate Sullivan. We will fairly alternate the candidate responding throughout the first part of the debate and throughout all of the debate. So gentlemen, here we go. You guys ready? All right, yep. Very good. So the very first question, question 1, Holyoke's property tax rate. Holyoke has the unenviable distinction of having the highest commercial tax rate of any of Massachusetts' 351 cities and towns. It is $40.63 per $1,000 of evaluation. The residential rate is $19.27 per $1,000 evaluation. What specifically will you commit to do to actually balance the budget and reduce the tax rates within the city? Mr. Garcia, you open with 2 minutes.
Thank you for the question, Tony. Certainly I want to thank everyone who's out here tonight. Thank you to Councilor Sullivan, candidate Sullivan, for being here tonight, participating in this debate. As far as the question is concerned, the whole pillar of my campaign has been focused on management. And so what I want to do is hit the ground running on day one to collaborate with our departments to understand where the inefficiencies are in our local government and identify solutions of which where we can implement services much more effectively and efficiently. And so it is through those efficiencies of which where we can prioritize and better support departments that are doing the important work. That's number one. But also number two, I think we have to continue to support the efforts of the growth that we're experiencing in Holyoke. Holyoke is seeing an upward trend on new business and new folks coming into the city. And so it's that new growth and revenue that we're going to maximize on as much as possible and do what we can to be sure that we're investing in our community, that we're investing in the necessary infrastructure, that we're investing in our education, and that we're investing in quality services so that we can continue to maximize on the greater ecosystem of the economic development strategy for the city of Holyoke.
Thank you. Candidate Sullivan, a rebuttal?
Well, I heard a lot of rhetoric, but I didn't hear exactly what we do about a tax rate. And as the moderator mentioned, we do have the highest tax rate in the Commonwealth, commercial tax rate. It's crippling business. The first thing I would do when I got into office would be to do a full data survey of all the industrial and commercial properties we have in Holyoke. This would give us a chance to reevaluate, reassess the true values of what we have out there, especially now since the cannabis industry has come to town. It's my feeling, and this is a low-cost project, and it would result in a lower commercial tax rate all around.
Thank you. Rebuttal, Candidate Garcia.
Yeah, I don't necessarily understand what Councilor Sullivan meant by any rhetoric. Certainly the strategy he shared is one component of a much more bigger strategy in play. Supplementing that idea, certainly we can go after making sure that those taxes owed to the city, property owners who owes the city of Holyoke thousands of dollars, who have default for many years, we have to be sure we go after those and put together a strategy, an infrastructure in place so that those issues don't continue happening. And so, I mean, I think there's a number of things that we can do. Certainly, what Councilor Sullivan is suggesting is just one component of it. The only difference here is that I've actually done it. And so that's my rebuttal on that one.
Okay. Gentlemen, question 2, and this will be answered first by Candidate Sullivan. Currently, we are aware of 4 large development projects lost to Holyoke because of the moratorium on any expanded use of natural gas. Each large development would have put increased property on the tax rolls at a time when it is so desperately needed. Specifically, what are you in favor of lifting the moratorium, and what are your plans to increase the natural gas available in Holyoke? Candidate Sullivan?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm absolutely in favor of lifting the natural gas moratorium as soon as we possibly can. It is crippling new businesses, not only the new businesses, but the 4 businesses that were turned away. Over 200 households have been denied also the use of new appliances. And the shame here is that those are more energy efficient appliances. It's conversions off of oil that would actually be better for the environment. And we're having to turn that away. I would definitely be working right from day one to re-engage with Eversource, to work with Holyoke Gas and Electric, and do everything in my power to see that we move back, lift this moratorium and can move the city forward again.
Candidate Garcia, 1-minute rebuttal.
Yeah, I think the issue here is that although Sullivan's a very nice guy, I just don't think he gets it. And when he makes that a pillar of his campaign, I look at the people out here and I feel terrible because he's just simply lying to you. The reality is that the mayor can't just simply go in and lift the moratorium. There's not enough capacity to meet the demand that's happening here in our city of Holyoke. And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to do what I can to reduce gas consumption, to free up capacity to those users that are our highest users of gas. I think we had that opportunity through the BAR grant, the $275,000 that Councilor Sullivan turned away. And so when he tells you I'm going to do what I can to reduce gas or whatever, he's just simply lying to you.
Candidate Sullivan, you have a 1-minute rebuttal, sir.
Well, I think before somebody accuses somebody of lying, they should do their homework a little better. The people involved in the BAR grant were out to take the gas out of Holyoke Gas and Electric. The people they brought in as energy experts were actually no background at all. That's the first thing that scared me off with them. No background in the industry. One of them was a anthropology major from a Quaker university. And if that doesn't scare you, as far as somebody dictating energy policy to the city, I think the council made a very wise choice in probably for the first time denying a grant.
Gentlemen, this is a good discourse, and I know that this question is very important to many folks, and I just want to fine-tune this just a little bit and give each one of you 1 more minute on the question. And I want to ask it again in this way. Specifically, just so folks know, are you in favor of lifting the moratorium? And whether you are or are not, what plans would you have to make more available natural gas in the city of Holyoke? And I will go to candidate Garcia first, please.
It would be great if I can go in and just lift the moratorium. And even if we were able to, the bottom line is that the infrastructure Eversource has in play cannot meet the demand that we have in Holyoke. So it's outside of the control of the city of Holyoke. That's the bottom line. And even when we do get to a point where we can actually connect, when Eversource gets to a point they'll invest in that infrastructure, you're still talking about another 5 to 7 years before you can see any hookup take place. And so that means what we need to do is to do what we can, because businesses and homeowners need access to some form of energy now. So we have to incentivize, as manager, work with gas and electric, incentivize, create these incentive programs of which we're going to transition our highest users, gas users, to renewable energy so that it can free up capacity. And once capacity is freed up, we can then at that point can continue to grow and maximize and keep up with the demand. So when I tell, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Candidate Sullivan, a minute for rebuttal again, sir.
Yeah, well, once again, I am absolutely in favor of lifting the moratorium. I know full well that the mayor himself cannot do that, but what the mayor can do is re-engage with Eversource. Show them that we are ready to take the steps we were not ready to take several years ago. We can work with Holyoke Gas and Electric to put the necessary mechanisms in place to welcome them back. We can all, and yes, we can generate programs that will accelerate our transition, but these are expensive programs, and they might work in other communities that have higher per capita incomes, but Holyoke will need a lot more assistance and a little more time, and we need that availability and that time to accomplish that.
Gentlemen, thank you for indulging me on the second response. I appreciate that. I think that was very helpful for folks in Holyoke. So question 3, which will be answered first for 2 minutes by candidate Garcia. At the polls, the voting citizens of Holyoke overwhelmingly turned down the proposal to build 2 new schools in the city. Aligned with this decision, it is no secret that Holyoke's schools have been in state receivership for years now. What is your commitment specifically to getting the schools back into the hands of Holyoke? Also, what is your commitment to the issue of building a new school in Holyoke, and how would you pay for it exactly? Candidate Garcia, please.
Yeah, so as far as the receivership situation is concerned, I do look forward to do what I can to collaborate with our school board members, collaborate with our receiver, to be sure that we have identified those benchmarks we need to accomplish between now and the next 4 years, so that every year when we're measuring our progress, we know that we're staying on the path to local control. That's number 1. Number 2, I do look forward to continue to collaborate with our legislatures, take full advantage of the recently, of what Holyoke's going to get through the Student Opportunity Act. That's going to provide the adequate funding our schools, our educators need to properly educate our students. And number 3, I want to listen to the teachers. Oftentimes we hear that we don't hear our teachers, and I want to be sure that our educators, that we're listening to their concerns and that we're incorporating that in our plan as we look forward to transition these schools back into local control. As far as the middle school, I'm fully committed to the plan that we're coordinating now. Yes, I was in full support of the 2 middle schools. Taking off my political hat and my dad hat, I do have 2 9-year-old children, of which I do hope to see that they'll have a middle school environment in the city of Holyoke, because that's where we're falling short. I think at the end of the day, the people spoke, and ultimately Holyoke won, because you have those who are against and those who are for working together to build 1 middle school. And we've already heard from bond counsel that certainly building 1 middle school is well within our debt capacity to pay for. And I'm very much looking forward to facilitate the necessary efforts to get us through the planning phase and breaking ground and through construction phase and opening up the schools to middle schoolers on day 1.
Thank you very much. Candidate Sullivan.
Yeah. Well, first, I would remind everybody that Mr. Garcia was part of the school board at the time that hired the superintendent that led us into receivership. Having said that, I wonder what he's going to do to lead us out of receivership. One of his quotes at the time was that there was benefits to receivership. Now, as far as the new middle schools go, I've been on the building committee. I've participated actively in what needs to go on there, and it is absolutely within the means of the current city budget to pay for the one new middle school without any raise in taxes at all.
Well, okay. 1 minute rebuttal. Candidate Garcia.
Again, I think Councilor Sullivan is a really nice guy, but once again, he just doesn't know what he's talking about. Listen, the fact of the matter is this. I went to the school system. My children are currently in the public school system. My wife works for the school system, and I want folks here to know that I am invested. Like every other family in Holyoke, when the twins were born, we had to have that conversation of whether or not we want to put them in private school or out of district. And we were fortunate enough to make such a decision. And ultimately, we decided to invest in our schools. And that's what you can expect from me as your next mayor.
Thank you both. I know that that is just such an incredibly important question for folks. So I want to do what we did a moment ago and give you an opportunity to add on a minute each. And perhaps, if you could, maybe focus on whatever your thoughts are that you've just shared. What would you be able to do with the common? What do you believe the state needs to see to get these schools out of receivership? And we would start off with Candidate Sullivan for that 1 minute additional rebuttal.
Yeah. Well, what the state needs to do, first of all, is give us clear goals, establish parameters, and be very explicit to us with what those goals, what those markers are, what we have to do to accomplish it. Short of that, the other thing we really need to get the state to come to the table on it is a fair package for funding the middle schools as well. Holyoke's a gateway city. There are many other mechanisms that could be employed, and as a chair of the school committee, the mayor is a chair, I would go after those funds and after any availability I could find.
Candidate Garcia?
I just think that this continues to show how disconnected Sullivan is. That there are clear goals, clear objectives. If you speak with any of the school committee members, they can tell you what they are. The problem is the communication gap. And so what I want to do as mayor is to be sure that we're communicating that information to the rest of the public so that folks know and understand what those goals, what those objectives are. That's number one. Number two, the Student Opportunity Act. There's a great deal of funding coming down the pipeline for gateway schools such as ours to adequately fund our schools and provide our teachers with the resources they need to properly educate our students. So these things are already happening.
Okay. Let me ask you, do you want another minute each on that one, or are you done? You have said what you had to say?
Good.
You're done. You're done. Okay. This is good. This was Lincoln Douglas, not like really Ali Frazier yet, so you're doing well. This is all right. Very congenial. That ends the Lincoln Douglas aspect of this debate. And now I guess if I were Alex Trebek, I would say we're going to the lightning round, so a little bit faster. So the way this works, gentlemen, is we're going to start with individual questions. Each candidate gets the same question. Candidates have 1 minute to respond with no rebuttal. I think that this will move along pretty quickly, and we will alternate the questions, as I say. And we're going to start off, to keep it fair as to who's gone first and second and all that, that the lightning round will begin with the first question being answered by Candidate Sullivan. There's been lots of rhetoric about what hasn't happened in Holyoke and what needs to be done in Holyoke. What 3 specific things are your absolute highest priority? The 3 things that you commit to accomplishing within your very first 90 days in office. Candidate Sullivan.
So the top three objectives for me would be, number one, to begin capitalizing on our green energy footprint. We have a tremendous resource there. It's underutilized. It's not being used to market the city properly, to bring in new businesses, to create new jobs, to restore prosperity to the families, and provide opportunities for our youth going forward. I would absolutely, as I've said before, move immediately to engage to end the natural gas moratorium and take back control of our schools would be my top three priorities.
Thank you. Candidate Garcia.
The first and foremost, the pillar of my campaign, I want to hit the ground running on the budget. It's around this time of the year. Communities across the Commonwealth are starting to put their budget together in preparation for fiscal year 23. So it's going to be important for me to meet with departments and start doing the closing the gap on inefficiencies, and so that we're coming into fiscal year 23 strong. The second thing, we have to focus on rapid recovery efforts for our small businesses that were impacted in COVID. It was those businesses that certainly have been struggling and doing what they can to stay open, and for those that closed, we have to do streamline the resources and be sure to let our small businesses know that we have their back. And continue to facilitate efforts around ARPA. That seems to be the top priority here through the current administration, and I want to be sure we can do what we can to get the funds out there that were committed to those organizations that are waiting for it.
Thank you both. Question 2 will be answered first by candidate Garcia, and the question is, what specifically do you feel is the highest and best use of Holyoke's parks and recreational facilities, and how exactly will you provide the desired and needed access to those facilities to the families and young people who want and need it? Candidate Garcia.
Holyoke is very fortunate to have the park infrastructures, the green spaces that we have here in the city. And I think my biggest frustration currently is the inadequate use of them. And a lot of it has to do with internal management between the relationship with DPW and Parks and Rec, and who oversees it and who maintains it, who manages it. And so it's something that I like to take a deep dive in and understand how can we reorganize this so that we're maximizing the best, highest potential of what Parks and Rec could potentially offer. We have great parks, we have different programs, but not enough of it. And so we need to be sure that we're properly maintaining these parks and supporting programs so that families can engage.
Thank you. Candidate Sullivan.
Yeah, as far as parks and recreation go, yes, we do need to do more maintenance of the parks, do a better job of maintaining them. But it's the program section that we're falling apart on, and we really need to step that up. Other communities, neighboring communities, offer as many as 60 programs during the summer for youth. These are programs that keep kids off the streets, keeps them away from guns and violence, gives them an alternative, it gives them mentorship programs, and we don't offer enough activities for the youth, and it's bringing in more and more activities, more and more involvement in the utilization of these parks, not just the physical appearance, but what they bring for community development.
Thank you. Question 3 will be answered first by candidate Sullivan. What is your vision of the highest and best use, objectively, of balancing the natural and recreational resources on and around Mount Tom with business development such as Mountain Park and the proposed changes with the Whiting Street Reservoir?
Yeah, so I'm proud of my accomplishments there. One of the highlights of my time on the council so far has been the formation of the Whiting Street Reservoir Committee. We did this first and foremost because of the cost of maintaining the reservoir and knowing that we would not be drawing water out of it for anywhere in the foreseeable future, at least 50 years going forward, how we could better utilize it. And what we asked for was a study that went the full spectrum and that covered everything, even the things we didn't want to hear, to just leaving it alone. But we wanted to get it out in public, make it a public process. The committee's done a great job of that, and I'm looking forward to their results.
Candidate Garcia?
Yeah, I think the highest and best use is just to simply protect and preserve. It's important to the public, it's important to our environment, and so as we go forward with any strategies that require us to mitigate issues around climate change, it's a best practice all across the Commonwealth to cities and towns, telling folks to do what you can to protect your natural green spaces. And although Josh Garcia personally think that we should do that, I do connect and speak with residents around the city as well as in Ward 7, and it's strongly felt that we should do what we can to continue to protect and preserve. Anything else would just be irresponsible.
Okay. Gentlemen, thank you both on that. Question 4 will be answered first by candidate Garcia. And this is a tough one because I know that you both love Holyoke. So it's tough because of what the question actually is. But I've heard you both on the campaign trail talk about this. Unfortunately, it's no secret that there is a perception of Holyoke as being an unsafe place to live by many who live here, have lived here, or are outside and contemplating a move here. What specifics will you commit to actually doing to keep young families here in Holyoke, to create safer neighborhoods, and get drugs off the street? Candidate Garcia, sir.
I think I just want to simply say that they are wrong. There's no perception of Holyoke. Holyoke is a safe place to live. Do we have our challenges? Yeah, sure, absolutely. And I think that as managers, as leaders, we have to do what we can to work together to de-escalate these challenges and improve the quality of life in areas. We're going to do that by making sure that our parks are clean and that our parks are safe, that we invest in our infrastructure, downtown and surrounding neighborhoods, so that when folks go for a walk and for a run, they can do so safely and absorb the best quality of life possible. And so I just don't, this perception, I've lived here all my life, and I certainly don't feel unsafe. Are there concerns? Sure, and I think that as managers, we'll work together to resolve those issues. People are moving to Holyoke, businesses are coming to Holyoke, and it's telling me a much different story than what those perceptions are.
Thank you. Candidate Sullivan, sir.
Yeah, well, here I very much disagree with candidate Garcia. Holyoke is no longer a safe place. Over the last decade, it's become much more unsafe. Families don't feel safe going downtown. I've heard from numerous business owners, the crime, the panhandling, the use of drugs, the open consumption of alcoholic beverages, the addiction problems are keeping people away from downtown. It's unsafe for children walking the streets. Parents are afraid to let their children go to school. And right now, that would be a prime focus from day one in the office, to work not only with the social agencies we have out there, but with the police force, code enforcement, and trying to get back control of the city.
I think those are good answers. This is a heavy question. I'd like to give each one of you one more minute on it, because it was maybe unfair to try to get you to answer that in just a minute, but so that you don't do the exact same thing again. Let me ask another aspect of this question that I recall from the meeting with the folks that put this debate together. As mayor, what would you do specifically, working with the city's law enforcement and also the city's community leaders in every single neighborhood? So we would go back to candidate Garcia for that.
I just want to remind folks on, those who are Hoyokers. I was born and raised here. I grew up in South Holyoke, came out of Providence Hospital, where we were in the 80s and the 90s, and compare that to where we are today. And when I think about that, I can tell you how much progress we've actually achieved around issues of safety. Do we have quality of life issues? Yeah, absolutely. And I've been fortunate to have been raised in our city, in poor conditions, gone through our public school system, to have the experience, who's had the firsthand experience to be able to be effective as a leader, to work collaboratively with members of our community, with our city council and other boards and committees, to be sure that we're implementing those strategies that are improving these conditions, the quality of life for everybody.
Thank you. Candidate Sullivan.
Yeah. Could you repeat the question for me?
Sure. As the mayor, as the chief executive, as commander-in-chief, so to speak, on law enforcement type issues, what would you do to work with law enforcement of the city and then the neighborhoods, the community leaders throughout the city to address some of these issues?
Yeah. Well, right off the bat, I'd want to start working with the police department. I'd want to bring back more foot patrols. I'd want more feet on the street. I'd like greater visibility. I'd like to see more code enforcement, and not just through the police department, but also through the various departments, through the building department, through the Board of Health. We really need to clean up what's going on in these streets. And this is not to show a lack of compassion, but it's to get people that need the help into the programs that are available and out there for them. And then to eliminate people that are violating and making the streets unsafe, walking out into traffic. They're unsafe for themselves. They're giving the city a bad image. And it's step by step going through the city in a manner like this that is fair, compassionate, but firm, that we can bring things back and make the city safer.
Very good. Thank you both. Question 5 will be answered first by candidate Sullivan. The media has reported well, and the public is very aware of quite a bit of turnover within City Hall, city positions, which has perhaps encouraged or exacerbated the belief that Holyoke City Hall is not a well-coordinated, supportive place to work. What specific plans do you have to take advantage of the talent within the city to bring in new talent that can get the job done? Also, what do you propose to get city departments working together again for Holyoke? Candidate Sullivan?
Well, the first thing we have to do is we have to start doing a better job of retaining our good employees. We have to offer a competitive wage, competitive benefits with our surrounding communities. That's the key in the city and any well-run business, or you're going to become just a revolving door, a training ground, and that is what has happened to us. As the mayor, I'll be engaging with each of the departments. I'm going to be there 24/7, and that's no joke. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be an active mayor. I'll be meeting with those department heads and doing everything in my power to keep their departments efficient, affordable to the city, and moving forward as fast as we can.
Thank you. Candidate Garcia.
Yeah, I think when I hear about this retention problem, I often think about how this is a symptom of a bigger problem, and that problem is the lack of management, and that's been the whole pillar of my campaign. And so what I hope to do is to slowly but surely do what I can to build capacity. Again, I've mentioned this before, we want to hit the ground running in the budget process. That's going to allow me to build a relationship with each of the departments to understand the good work, what it is they do, where the gaps are, and how we can provide the support, the training, and the necessary guidance they need to be successful. As we continue to build capacity, we have to look at how we can reorganize internally and find those efficiencies so that we can put a budget together that helps put together a much more competitive wage. It's not anything that I can do in year 1, but perhaps that's something we can achieve for year 3. And so it's planning, it's strategizing, it's working together to better meet the needs of the staff at City Hall.
Good answers, appreciate it, but I'd like to go back to this one. Just off the cuff, would like to ask, what would you do to help reestablish a new esprit de corps at Holyoke City Hall, and not just City Hall, but throughout the city, to the folks that are providing services? And so we go back to Candidate Sullivan for just a moment on that. Thank you.
Well, I'll go a little bit back to what I previously said. I'd be working and meeting with each of the department heads. Mayor Murphy's done a tremendous job in the interim here, and he's already established a program of meeting with the group of department heads on a regular basis. But besides that, I would be meeting with them not only in their departments, but with their personnel and with their staff as well. You might find me one day out just even bringing a box of donuts and some coffee to the people doing the snow removal or picking up your trash at your houses. Talking to the employees on a one-on-one basis and finding out what their concerns on and listen to them. Any good manager in any company listens to all the employees, not just the managers.
Thank you. Candidate Garcia, sir?
Yeah, I was just alluding to the symptom of a larger problem. You have a lot of folks who just don't feel supported. They don't feel heard. They're not adequately funded. So, you have, we're asking departments to do everything and give them nothing to do it. And so that's what I mean when I say we have to assess what the gaps are and how we can move things around to provide the adequate support they need. If it's training, if it's staff support, so that they can execute the quality of life services that we all expect, because they're the ones that are doing the important work. It's not the mayor going in there that's going to take your trash out and respond to public safety issues. It's our staff, it's our personnel. And so as managers, it's going to be important for me to collaborate with those departments, understand what the needs are, and do what I can in my budget process to be sure that we're keeping up with those needs.
Thank you both. Great answers there. The next question, question 6, will be answered first by Candidate Garcia. And I like this one. This is a fun one because it's not about finding some money on your own in Holyoke. It's about money that's coming to Holyoke. So here we go. There will be a second round of ARPA funds coming to Holyoke next year. Would you commit to using some of that money, and how much, for the CSO, the Combined Sewer Overflow, water and sewer projects, infrastructure improvements, and new replacement equipment for those unmet essential city needs which have not been met for years? Candidate Garcia.
Yeah, I think, we've said this before. The current administration, under the direction of Acting Mayor Terry Murphy, has done a tremendous job during a very unusual time with executing or committing the first round of ARPA funds. Would I have done things a little differently? Sure, but nevertheless, we owe him all due respect for what he's been able to accomplish in a short period of time. The second round of ARPA, I'd like to see merit pay be committed to first responders. I'd like to see rapid recovery efforts, small businesses supported any which way possible so that they can come off strong post-pandemic. And, yes, certainly there's infrastructure, but understand that in the pipeline, there's a great deal of infrastructure money coming to the city of Holyoke. So I'd like to see how we can supplement ARPA as well as those infrastructure funds from the federal government that's a great idea. Yes, absolutely. And whatever other dire infrastructure needs there are in the city of Holyoke.
Thank you. Candidate Sullivan, sir.
Yep. Thank you. Once again, I believe this question was about stormwater separation now, and the city's under a federal mandate to achieve separation of stormwater from our sewer system. And yeah, we have another 30 years to accomplish this, but Mother Nature, climate change, has not given us the 30 years that the federal government's given us. In my estimation, we only have 15 years and maybe even less. And it's going to be a huge problem going forward if we don't start addressing this in a more aggressive manner. I would direct a much larger portion of the ARPA funds towards this type of project. It's vital to our growth in the future, our health, our safety, and our survivability as a city.
Thank you. Candidate Garcia.
Yeah, so I think it all comes down to priority. When you look at these different funding sources, be it the budget, through raise and appropriation, free cash, unfortunately none of that's available at the moment, ARPA, the federal dollars for infrastructure, we have to take take a strong look at the needs of our city and tackle those issues that are top priority based on the emergency and the conditions of which proper response is needed. So I don't disagree. What I'm saying is to the folks here that are in our audience is that we have to look at the whole picture, prioritize the need, look at our revenue sources, and execute.
Thank you. The next question will be answered first by candidate Garcia. The master plan for the city of Holyoke was developed in 1997 and 1998, coming into effect in 1999. So we're talking the last century, gentlemen. Will you commit to engaging professionals to look at the highest and best use for all and every neighborhood and sections within the city and the development of an up-to-date master plan?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's been 20 years since we haven't had done or updated our master plan. There's certainly a lot of changes. We have a lot of different industry coming into the city, particularly around marijuana. We have issues around climate change. And so when I think of what our next master plan should be, it should definitely have a climate resiliency twist on it as we go forward with trying to navigate growth development pressures in the city of Holyoke. It's important to understand that a master plan, why it's important is because it's a robust community engagement process that ultimately concludes the final document. It's not about just having a tangible document, it's about the process to get there, to engage every corner of our neighborhood, our city, to understand what the outlook, the vision is for the city, so that when decision makers such as the mayor and the council, when they're prioritizing resources, that we're doing so under the priority of what that community wants.
Thank you. Candidate Sullivan.
Yeah, we definitely need to get work on a new master plan. Our old one seems to have completely fallen apart and pretty much have been ignored for the last 10 years as well. One of the things I don't want to see is a plan built strictly around the cannabis industry. I don't want to see Holyoke become a one industry town again. That's why I want so much to capitalize on our green energy footprint, do what we can to bring new businesses back into town. We've completely disconnected. We're trying to develop an arts and entertainment district, yet we continue to become a city that has become a local warehouse for low income, for poverty, and not affording people the opportunities to make a livable wage, have good jobs, provide opportunities for their children.
Thank you both. The next question will be answered first by candidate Sullivan. In 2009, a duly elected group of dedicated volunteers worked for 2 years developing a charter change, which was on the 2011 ballot. It was voted down by the voters. Included in it was the incorporation of the treasurer-collector functions designed to pull the city's financial team together. A CFO, Chief Financial Officer, would have been put in place. Since then, each and every year, as the city's books get audited and balanced, there have been suggestions from the CPAs involved with that and the state to combine the treasurer-collector positions in the city of Holyoke to include a CFO. Will you commit to taking this forward? It will require, yet again, a charter change.
Yes. So I'm absolutely in favor of a CFO position. The problem we had in the past, and I wasn't on the council, I wasn't even interested in politics as such that number of years ago, but what happened was this one very important question was tied to a complete package of revamping a charter. And I think this one, and I think that it failed because you had to take everything and accept the entire package or reject the entire package. So this is a charter change that I would be happy to see go forward. I would support it going forward. I would work with the council. This is something that would also have to go home rule petition to the state as well, but it's something I would be very much in favor of.
Thank you. Candidate Garcia, sir.
Yeah, I think it'll be very healthy for Holyoke to take a strong look at its charter and investigate the different forms of governments that we can potentially fit, that'll potentially fit for Holyoke. whether if it's a CFO or a comptroller or a manager council form of government or a mayor council with a manager form of government. There are different practices cities and towns are implementing across the Commonwealth that I think any community, any healthy community should be doing to investigate so that we're keeping up with the most current practices when managing our local government. Yeah, there was that charter request at that time. This isn't anything that we're going to resolve in a year. I think it's going to take 3, 5, maybe even 10-year approach of which this study takes place. Consensus is built so that when questions are on the ballot, that we'll ultimately see them passed.
Thank you. Candidate Garcia, you're up first on the next question.
Excuse me.
What specific policies or procedures will you implement to improve the participation of Holyoke's diverse population in the city decision-making processes? And I think here I'll just, Joe, throw in, I think we're talking about from voter participation to everything, coming to City Hall, weighing in, etc. So, Candidate Garcia.
Yeah, I think equity and inclusion is very important. When you think about government, it's designed so that everybody has say and some sort of power and control in the decisions that impact their lives. Holyoke is divided by income, and it just so happens that our poorest neighborhoods are predominantly Hispanic, and it's designed that way. And so what we have to do is do what we can to dismantle that, and we have to empower our neighborhoods more, whether if it's through neighborhood associations where we provide some sort of funding that they can start coming together and working toward and trying to invest in their neighborhoods, and hopefully that'll empower them to want to run for city council one day, serve on a school board. As mayor, I look forward to be sure that our boards and committees reflect the population of the community at large, and that the different neighborhoods of our city are somehow in some way, shape, or form are represented.
Candidate Sullivan, same question, sir.
Yeah, I think as far as diversity and inclusion, we have wonderful opportunities out there, and Holyoke's always been a very diverse community with loads of opportunity for everyone. What I feel we need to do, though, is get out and encourage the participation, do a better job. The recent census we have was a great reflection of that lack of participation. And that's the real problem. And as a mayor of Holyoke, I would be out there and I would be really driving on to every elected official, every department head, and everybody I made contact with to get the entire community more involved. We hurt ourselves as a community, not only with the census, but we hurt ourselves when we don't get as many voices heard as possible. And that will reflect also, I hope we can do a job coming out of here tonight. We can all get out and really encourage more voters to turn out as well, to show that diversity and show the inclusion that we really do have in Holyoke.
Thank you both. The next question, specifically, as the mayor, the chief executive of this city, how do you personally plan to market Holyoke? And the answer cannot be hire Gary Rohn. So I'll just throw that one out there, okay? And we start off with...
Oh, let me scratch that.
That would have been the easy answer. Candidate Sullivan, please.
Yeah. Well, marketing Holyoke, once again, it's going to be around our green energy footprint. Once again, this is our real key to the future. Every business out there, every industry is looking to plug into green energy. And we have that here in Holyoke. And we've got to get out there and market it well outside the boundaries of our own city, outside of Western Mass. We've got to let the world know that we're here, we're ready to bring business into city. We're looking for other industries. We're looking to be supportive and provide the resources for good jobs, good paying jobs, good wages to come back to the city.
Thank you. Candidate Garcia, sir.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, the city of Holyoke has been doing what it can to do exactly that, not necessarily to the extent of what we can accomplish. Yes, our geographical position in the region is competitive. Yes, our green energy position in the region is competitive. I think the issue is the inefficiencies within our local government. I think, businesses, those that are here and those that may want to move here, just kind of feel like, they want the city to invest, want them to invest in the city, but the city's not investing enough in them. And so we have to do what we have to do as mayor, collaboratively with the council, with our departments, is to find ways to eliminate these barriers that are slowing the growth progress of which we can potentially grow in the city. We've been in a steady incline, but nevertheless, it's not as strong as what we can be because of these inefficiencies.
Thank you both. This next question may sound similar to the last, but it's definitely different. We all know that if you want to get a hot dog or a Hyundai, you're going to come to Holyoke. Sorry, Gary, I got to just throw it in. It's easy. So how exactly would you leverage the tourism assets that are already within this city? What would you do to promote what you've got, past, current? And we start with candidate Garcia.
The infrastructure, the city's infrastructure is amazing. People aren't, I heard this perception of people living in Holyoke. People are moving to Holyoke. Holyoke is a hot ticket right now in the region. Not only do you have new families, you have new residents because they like what they see going on in our city. There are challenges, and I think that's where we have to focus our efforts, is to do what we can to improve the quality of life so that we maximize as much as possible in people's pride in our community. We want folks to feel like they've made a good decision when they move to Holyoke. And when you have pride, it's people that make the community. And so civically engage our residents, making sure that we're investing in them so that they are proud of their community, that we're building on pride, and that we're taking advantage of that pride to continue to build it and grow our tourism.
Candidate Sullivan, sir?
I'm going to do this again. Could you repeat the question?
Certainly. And I won't add in the hot dog or the Hyundai part of it and whatnot, okay? So how exactly, what would you do to leverage the tourism assets within the city?
Okay. So to leverage the tourism assets, and once again, I think this is what separates me from my competition here, is I'm going to address that question, right? The tourism assets we have are phenomenal. We've got high-speed rail right from New York City to the hearts of our art and entertainment district that we've been trying to develop. We've got the Volleyball Hall of Fame, the Carousel, we've got the Children's Museum, and I've traveled a lot over the years, and especially in South America, Argentina, Brazil, volleyball is huge there. And when they come to the United States, they don't go to Yosemite, they don't go to the Grand Canyon. I was amazed to find out they go to New York City. And to promote that with the tourism industry as part of a package, even if it's just a one-day trip up on the high-speed rail that drops off right there, there's a golden opportunity we should take advantage of.
Thank you both. The next question will be answered first by candidate Sullivan. If you were granted a large sum of money, no strings attached, not ARPA, what is the first thing you would do with it within the city? What would be job one, day one? Spend some money. Candidate Sullivan.
A large sum of money like that outside of the ARPA funds would definitely go towards supporting youth programs in the city, and especially the agencies that are doing an outstanding job, the agencies that we need to support the school system, agencies like Enlace Familias, the Holyoke Boys and Girls Club, the YMCA, and especially Homework House. These are the vital, I think, building blocks to help also turn around not only the perception of the city, but to enhance the opportunities for our youth to engage fuller as they enter the public school system.
Thank you. Candidate Garcia, sir.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree with that any less. I think definitely any opportunity we can get to invest in our youth is a plus. Understand that growing up in Holyoke, there were a lot of opportunities to engage and even to hire teenagers. and it's just not happening today like it used to. We have to go back to that. Collaborating with the local nonprofit organizations. I'm a Boys and Girls Club kid myself. They gave me my first job when I was 13 years old. I worked there all throughout high school and throughout college, and I know a lot of my peers who have engaged in other youth programs throughout the city, and these are things that we're just not seeing today. So I couldn't disagree more. If we can invest more on opportunities for our youth to engage in positive activity and off the street, it's definitely a home run.
Thank you both. Next question will be answered first by candidate Garcia. What do you have to say directly this evening, specifically to Holyoke's seniors, Holyoke's taxpayers, the folks who struggle every day to pay the bills, to the young families, the prospective developers and business people, and other interested parties as to why you should be their collective choice for mayor, why you should be the mayor, the chief executive officer of this city? Candidate Garcia, sir.
Well, the first and foremost I want everybody to know is that I hear you. All throughout the years that I've been growing up in Holyoke and have been actively engaged in different initiatives, different organizations. Many of you in the crowd, I've worked with you in some way, shape, or form or capacity. And I am very familiar with the issues that are going on in our city. My mother, when they moved here, we were a product of the social service environment. I'm a product of that. And so we're very fortunate in Holyoke to have these resources, but understand that it's critical to have somebody that understands that struggle. And on top of that, there's experience. I've been fortunate enough to have gained experience at the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, working with local governments around the valley with improving municipal services and putting that into practice in my current capacity as administrator at Blandford. And so I hear you, and as your next mayor, I fully look forward to meet your needs.
Thank you. Candidate Sullivan.
Yeah. So in answer to the question, for the seniors, for the citizens, for everyone in Holyoke, the first and foremost thing I'm going to do is get out there and make the streets of Holyoke safe again. Safe for seniors to walk on, go to the store, go to the restaurants, for children to get to school. I'm going to be engaged with the police department. I'm going to be engaged with the department heads. And we're going to get out there and make this a livable city, a place people want to live in, a place people want to work in. It's a tough job, and I can tell you this, I will be there all the time. I will not be looking for a stepping stone to another career. I will not be moving on for another job in another city. I will not be looking for a town manager position somewhere. This is where I live, and this is where I'm going to stay.
Thank you both. I kind of feel like Tom Brady back in the day when he was here at home. I just got an audible call come in from the side here that said, extend. So this has been good. The audience is great. We're going to go just a little longer and maybe go to another question or two. But really, what I'd like to go back to is the first question, because we gave you such a short amount of time to answer such a huge question. And this time, why don't we give each one of the candidates 2 minutes, if I could call that audible on this one? Or go for 3 if you want to. That first question was, there's been a lot of rhetoric about what has not happened in Holyoke and what needs to be done. What 3 specific things are your absolute highest priority? The 3 things that you commit to accomplishing. We asked earlier that you could have a limit of 90 days on that. Forget the time limit. Let's do it a different way. What are the 3 top things that you commit to accomplish before we see you running for re-election? And we will go to candidate Sullivan first on that question, sir.
Okay. So my top 3 priorities, I've got to say it again and again and again, to do everything in my power to lift the gas moratorium, to make sure that we have an adequate supply, to ensure a transition to green energy as technology develops, and that we can have this supply available so we're not turning away new businesses, so people cannot move to more efficient appliances in their homes, so we can build new homes, so we can have new businesses come to town. That would be number one. Number two, as I've said, to capitalize on this green energy footprint we have. It's a phenomenal opportunity right now. We're a leader in the country, and it's not advertised, it's not known. We've got to make ourselves known to the world as a place to come. Bring your business here, bring your jobs here, bring the economic opportunity we need.
Thanks. Oh, I'm sorry. You can go a little further if you want, because you look to get a little, good?
Yeah.
All right.
No, I got another minute.
Go ahead.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
There you go, man.
Bring back control of our schools. Take control back of our schools. Nobody knows better than the citizens of Holyoke how to fix the problems in Holyoke. People from Boston don't know. People from out of any of the other surrounding communities. Holyokeers know best what's best for Holyoke.
Thank you. Candidate Garcia.
Yeah, and just really quickly before I jump into this one and the previous statement,
Sure.
and the previous question, I just have no idea what Councilor Sullivan is talking about, just to make that clear. You know, I think we've heard Councilor Sullivan answer this question. These are three things that he's mentioned. The bottom line is that he doesn't know what he's talking about. He can't just go in and lift the moratorium. It's actually a very complex situation. We've heard him answer that question earlier on and said that he was going to work with G&E and it's going to take time, but that's going to be the first thing he does. And I just don't, you know, where we stand there. I think what we need to focus on in the first 90 days, and this is important, no matter who's the mayor actually, has to be the budget situation in the city of Holyoke. Understand that our departments are operating in a shoestring. These issues that we see in our streets are a symptom of a bigger problem, and that's because of our dysfunctional way our city government is currently operating. And so that is why we need to hit the ground running and focus solely in trying to get that straightened out. We have a $2 million deficit the city hasn't been able to close, and they're all structural in nature. We have this consistent negative free cash balance certification that's happening every year, and we're not able to adequately keep up with our capital assets and infrastructure. And so that's going to be my first priority between now and the next, let's say, 3-4 years, so we can right-size the ship, put Holyoke on a stronger path forward. And the other priority has to be around rapid recovery efforts. Our local businesses have suffered through the pandemic, and I want to be sure that our local government is doing what it can to support them so that they can continue providing the service that we all expect and contribute to our tax base.
Thank you both. So next question. How would you work with the other mayors of Western Massachusetts? Do you see some synergy between your efforts for Holyoke and some of the other cities and towns around us? What would you do working with them to make the voices of Western Massachusetts heard in Boston? Candidate Garcia.
Yeah, so I'm familiar with the leadership up and down the Pioneer Valley in my role at Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. It was my job to work with local government leadership, be it mayors, managers, administrators, to come in and assess inefficiencies and come up with solutions to offer and even provide the technical assistance necessary to get them to implement the solutions. And so the relationships are important. I already have them. That's number one. Number two, regional collaboration is important. Issues that are impacting our region does not see no borders. And so it's going to be important for the mayor to maintain those relationships and meet regularly and come up with strategies as well as advocate for the necessary resources from the Commonwealth to effectively tackle the systemic issues that are impacting everybody across our region.
Thank you. Candidate Sullivan, sir.
Yeah, I would very much look forward to interacting, cooperating with our neighboring mayors. Just 2 weeks ago, I had an opportunity to meet Will Reichelt from West Springfield. I believe, especially around the heroin epidemic I think, and just other things, whether it be motorcycles and dirt bikes, or heroin, or code enforcement problems. There's a lot of levels of cooperation that we can achieve together with our neighbors. As far as, I think it'd be great, especially with the mayors working with our state reps, with our state senator, to see what funds we could bring to Western Mass, see if we get more of our share of the pie that seems to stay inside the Beltway in Boston, inside that 128, 495 margin. And I think together, collectively as a team, we really might be able to get a lot more attention and maybe a lot more funding out of Boston.
Okay. Thank you both on that one. You get elected tomorrow, and let's just say that we give you Charlie Baker and Karen Polito's cell phones. What call do you make to them tomorrow morning, first thing right off the bat? What do you say? What's Holyoke need? Candidate Sullivan.
Well, my first one right out of the starting gate is we need a better formula for the middle schools, for the funding of our middle schools. We have the lowest per capita income in the state. We can't afford what other people can afford within that existing formula that they use. There's a lot of misunderstanding around that, but there needs to be a program specifically for gateway cities and especially for communities like Holyoke, so that our children have the same opportunities, our school system has the same opportunities as our surrounding communities, our more wealthier communities, and what they're enjoying.
Candidate Garcia, Charlie, Karen, what's up?
So two things off the top of my head. One, I do want to have a serious and sincere conversation on the issue around the school receivership problem, and making sure that we're on the same page, that they understand that the citizens of Holyoke want local control, and so that we're not, that we're not dancing around here, and that we're on a clear understanding that we'll be working together on that path to local control, and that we're serious about that. And number two, I'd be seeking for support to fund the master plan. It's not going to be cheap. There's certainly some grant resources through the Mass Vulnerability Preparedness Program that can support getting a master plan process off the ground. And it's going to be important that this document get developed so that as these resources become available, and there's going to be a lot of them coming down the pipeline through the federal government, that the decision makers, not Josh Garcia, the mayor, not members on the council, that decision makers are prioritizing the needs and wants of the community.
Thank you. Gentlemen, the next question comes from what I've heard you say this evening in answers on several of these questions, and also what we've heard you both talk about through the campaign. You've both talked about drug addiction issues, the need to help folks. You're in Hamden County. You've got an award-winning, nationally recognized sheriff of Hamden County, whose programs are being heralded by the Department of Justice and by advocates for folks out there who are suffering. What would you do, if anything, to work with the Hamden County Sheriff's Department to try to address some of Holyoke's issues in that regard? Candidate Garcia.
Yeah, these issues that are impacting our community are systemic, and before cultivating our relationship with the sheriff, I want to be sure that we're doing what we can to invest in those organizations that are doing the important work around mental health, around addiction, so that we're strategically tackling these issues in a very proactive way to help de-escalate this problem. And also, and through a regional collaborative effort with other surrounding communities, as well as our state delegation, that we're leveraging the necessary resources to deal with the homelessness problem. Yes, absolutely. I was actually did summer help at the jail when I was a junior in college as a correctional officer. The Hamden County Sheriff's Department does have excellent programs, and any way we can continue to cultivate that relationship, but certainly want to be sure that we're looking at alternative strategies as well.
Thank you. Candidate Sullivan, same question, sir.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to engage in a much more active manner with the Sheriff's Department. We have a lot of compassion in Holyoke. We've gone above and beyond the call of duty, and we've become a magnet for people with addiction problems, and we offer plenty of services, and we make them available. We have teams out with our police department, psychiatrists, helping steer people into these programs. But some people have deteriorated to a point where they can no longer function. They can't help themselves, and they need to be placed into a program. Be it court-ordered, so be it. It's for their own safety, their own good, and the good of the public. And the program at Ludlow that the sheriff is running is not incarceration by any means. It has a full follow-up program as well. It has a very high success rate. It's nationally recognized. And this, I feel, is something we have to begin to utilize.
Thank you both. Next question. Holyoke Medical Center. Holyoke Medical Center is viewed as an asset here in the community. We often hear and we read of the amazing challenges in healthcare today, how difficult it is to see necessary funds from the state and the Fed not get stuck just in Boston with Mass General, Beth Israel, etc. What would you do to advocate and fight for Holyoke Medical Center? Candidate Sullivan.
Well, I was born there, so
Okay.
kind of like the place. But yeah, and it's always been a great asset in the community. Anything we can do to, number one, improve the health facilities for the citizens of Holyoke, but also it's a regional job center also. And these are good paying jobs. And to expand the facilities at Holyoke Medical Center, the services offered at Holyoke Medical Center, not only for the health and benefit of the community, but for the general good of the I mean, I think it would be absolutely fantastic, and it's something I would wholly support.
Great. Candidate Garcia?
Yeah, if we're talking about the health center, the medical center, if we're talking about the soldiers' home, these are all incredible assets in our community that I would always looking forward to advocate for and be sure that we're supporting so that they're operating sustainably and so that they're successful. I'd love to actually strengthen the collaboration between the city of Holyoke and the hospital, that's currently recognized as a community hospital but doesn't necessarily feel like it's a community hospital. I know that through the IRS mandate, they have to do every 3 years what's called a SHNA, a community health needs assessment. And so that's important data they're collecting that I think would be great to share with the community at large so that we can better prioritize our time, our resources, and making sure that we're hitting those health indicators that are causing poor health in our community.
Thank you both. Next question will go first to candidate Garcia. Westfield has just scored a $2.9 billion, that's billion with a B, data center. Holyoke already has a data center. Y'all were first. One of the reasons for going to Westfield was the Westfield gas and electric, the access to less expensive energy, which is a hindrance to anything happening in New England. But Holyoke has truly renewable energy resource. You all have a dam. What would you do tomorrow? You're elected mayor. What do you do to drive into Westfield and say, hey, come on over, we want you here? Candidate Garcia.
Well, I don't want to, I wasn't there when this decision was made to move to Westfield, whether or not Holyoke was even observed and part of that discussion. It certainly is a missed opportunity if we didn't do anything to do what we could to get them here to the city of Holyoke. As mayor, I wouldn't be, I think they landed in Westfield. I wouldn't want to take away from Westfield, that we're going to benefit from it, but moving forward, we have to be sure that another missed opportunity like that doesn't happen again for Holyoke. And so, no, I won't be calling the business up and trying to get them to up and go and come to Holyoke unless they want to do so and find another home in 20 years or in 10 years or so. But certainly want to be sure that I'm doing what I can to achieve the efficiencies we have to and market our city the way that we have to, so that when there is another opportunity like that, that Holyoke is the first choice.
Thank you. Candidate Sullivan, same question, sir.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree with candidate Garcia more on this. I'm so happy Westfield got them. You should be aware of the high-speed green energy center down there provides very few jobs. It takes up a tremendous amount of our cheap electricity that we could be using to attract better jobs, better paying jobs, more jobs, and fuel the kind of growth we need to really have a revival in Holyoke. And a place like that would just suck up all that energy, all that electricity, and it wouldn't be available for real job-creating growth in the city. Not only that, but look what we got with this one here. A $100 million facility that pays $80,000 a year in taxes. That's pathetic. And I would fight tooth and nail not to ever let that happen to us again.
Thank you both very much. Great answers. Next question. I happen to know that columnist Barbara Bernard is watching from home this evening. The indomitable, inimitable, amazing Barbara Bernard. First woman on television with a show, ABC 40 back in the day, and as we all know, still writing for the Republican. Barbara, if she were here, I think, could ask a lot of questions better than myself, as I'm ad-libbing all of these now. But I'm wondering, off the top of your heads, thinking again of Barbara out there, what are the top 3 most historically significant things that have happened in Holyoke that are still relevant today that might be marketable? Candidate Garcia, historical perspective of the city.
Oh, man, what a great question. Historical perspective of the city that are still impacting us today. I think I would say the consolidation of our schools and eliminating middle schools. I think that was a good short-term measure at the time, maybe, perhaps, but certainly the city had failed to hit the ground running and coming up with an alternative solution to forward think on how we're going to meet the needs of our middle school age children, and we're feeling it today because of that lack of planning. You said top 3?
Top 3.
Oh my goodness.
If you can, if you can.
Historical significance, top 3. Yeah, you got me on that one. Okay. Barbara got me on that one.
All right. We need a Barbara Bernard for that one.
I'm going to need some help from Mike Sullivan here.
Okay. At 94, I believe she is. You could probably bring her to Holyoke City Hall. But candidate Sullivan, sir.
Tough question for a young guy.
I'm an old soul, though.
I've heard that. Now, from a historical perspective, I think, trying to think how Barbara would, but first of all, volleyball, and I'll go back to what I said. How can we capitalize on that like Springfield did on basketball? And it's a globally recognized sport, and I think that's something we could really, really run with. Our canal system is as part of a historic tours. It's fascinating. During the Open Doors Holyoke, I got to host tours of 2 of the old turbines down in the basement of Open Square, where they actually, they're over 120 years old and still producing electricity today. So I'd have to say that. And then our City Hall. Yeah, what a gem. I mean, you think sometimes you look at the skyline and you think you're in London, and it really, as far as historic preservation in the city, that's a real jewel that has been too long ignored, and it's something we really do need to start putting more effort, or it's going to be like a lot of other problems we have in the city.
Thank you. You're elected mayor tomorrow morning. Richard Neal is the chairman of Ways and Means in the United States. The last few weeks, unique things relative to what his standing is in the United States. He's either the third most powerful person, if you just look at the Democratic side, or in the top 6 across the board, Democrat and Republican. He's got the purse strings. If he wins re-election next year, but if the United States House goes Republican, he'll lose that chairmanship in January 2023. What do you do for that year that you've got to work with him as the chairman of Ways and Means? You don't have a lot of time to play with, you got a year. What's the very first thing you do when you pick up the phone and call the chairman of Ways and Means who represents Holyoke? Mr. Sullivan.
Well, I'd tell him quadruple our funds. Just give us a blank check. But short of that, first thing I'd want him to do is engage with the Army Corps of Engineers and get them back here in Holyoke. We have flood walls, and the technology, the usefulness of them dates back to the 1930s. And it's something that really needs attention now, especially with climate change, what we're going through. It needs a serious amount of upgrading and restructuring, rethinking on that level to help us with the stormwater separation, to get us more funds for replacing, especially our aging underground infrastructure, our water lines, our sewer lines. Those would be my biggest things to come after him for, is the generational change, things that we need to get this city back on the track, not just for next year, the year after, but for generations to come.
Thank you. Candidate Garcia.
Yeah, there's no doubt any opportunity we can get to leverage additional support and resources to invest in our infrastructure is definitely a plus. So if he can expedite that for us and triple it, that's a win for Holyoke, that's a win for taxpayers. And I love to see how he can elevate the whole east-west rail conversation. There's a lot of jobs out there in Boston, and it'd be great if folks from Holyoke can just hop on a train and be able to quickly get to the city and access those jobs. And that's not just good for Holyoke, but it's good for Western Massachusetts. So infrastructure and east-west rail.
Okay. I've been involved in a lot of campaigns across America, a lot of tough campaigns for mayor. I'm coming here out of New York City. My mind's always in Boston. I've seen very different mayoral campaigns, knock down, drag out. Holyoke's always been known for tough politics and for some pretty good fights over the course of the decades. The two of you have been very, very civil. Tonight we've seen how different you are on several issues. You've answered very specifically. There are differences between the two of you, but there don't seem to be any personal differences. I wanted to ask both of you, starting off with candidate Sullivan, if you could just make some general personal comments about your opponent for this seat. Just some thoughts, not in a negative way at all, but in a positive way, I guess I want to say. You've been so civil. You guys seem to have come to know each other, and there's a real, seems to be a synergy or an energy between the two of you. What's that all about? Candidate Sullivan.
Well, Josh is a much better dresser than I am. I gotta admit that. I had to have a lot of help just to pick out this suit, but no, Josh, I have known him through the years. He is a very fine reflection of what Holyoke's all about, and I know about his history at the Boys Club. I've worked with a lot of youth that have come out of the Boys Club, and kind of proud of him for what he's achieved for himself.
Thank you. Candidate Garcia.
Yeah, and just so that folks know, we've had multiple conversations in the past before, and Mike Sullivan's a very nice guy. He helped a lot of youth that I went to high school with that were in a very different path than I have. I certainly was able to carve a very different path because, I did have the Boys and Girls Club when they hired me at 13 years old, and I stood there through. I went to one football practice in high school and quit because it was conflicting with my work hours. But I've heard stories of Mike Sullivan. I never met him because I had the Boys and Girls Club. Mike Sullivan's a very nice guy, helped a lot of people. I've helped a lot of people, and it's what makes Holyoke Holyoke.
Very good. So that brings me to my final question in this round. So, given all that, if one or the other wins the mayoralty, does the other continue to stay involved in Holyoke? Does the other offer to be helpful to the administration? So, in that regard, Candidate Garcia, would go to you first. Would you be involved, helpful to the administration of Mike Sullivan?
Absolutely not. No, I'm just joshing you.
Hey, we're doing so good. Now, here we go.
Just joshing you. Look, the way that I look at it is, I've been involved, my career kicked off at the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, and that's where my heart and passion for local government work really kicked off. Tim Brennan, God rest his soul, saved my life. And so it was from there I've had the great honor and was very fortunate to take on the town administrator role in Blandford. And managers and administrators, we communicate, as well as mayors, we all talk to each other. And there are 351 cities and towns across the Commonwealth, and Massachusetts is strong because of the contributions that each one's provide to the greater borders of our Commonwealth. And so, we always want to see people succeed. If Mike Sullivan gets in there and he succeeds, Holyoke wins. If I get in there, I succeed, Holyoke wins, we all win. So any way that I can always be supportive to transfer what I know, to be sure that I'm helping my community, as I've always been since I was a kid, is always a plus for all of us.
Very good. Candidate Sullivan, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. I've lived in Holyoke all my life. I'm invested in Holyoke. There's no way I'm going to step down from my civic engagement just because I lose a race, but I have no intention of losing.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you both very much. Gentlemen, now we come to that part of the debate where we've covered an awful lot of ground. I know you've both got a lot more ground to cover over the next few days, so probably time to wrap this up. The audience has been absolutely fantastic, and that's deeply appreciated. So we're now going to ask you to deliver your 2-minute closing statements to the people of Holyoke. So we'll do that in the reverse order of the opening statements. So Candidate Sullivan, you'll have the opportunity to go first, sir.
Okay, thank you. I'd just like to, once again, Holyoke's always been a place of diversity. It's one of our greatest assets, and we have found common ground, and we can work together to make Holyoke a better place to live and grow. There's no doubt in my mind about this. But Holyoke needs economic development, not only to create more jobs, but to increase our tax base so we can have lower and fairer taxes and provide essential services and better schools. We need to raise household incomes so that families can build a brighter future together. A good paying job is one of the best incentives to keep young people off the streets, away from drugs, away from crime, away from guns, away from violence. And this, I mean from my heart. We need to secure the availability of natural gas for the short term to allow for a smooth transition as new technology emerges. We can't be forcing people to use dirtier, more dangerous fuels like oil or propane. It doesn't make sense for the environment, it doesn't make sense for the families, it doesn't make sense for business, and it doesn't make any sense for Holyoke. What we really need to do is bring in the good-paying jobs and take back control of our schools so the kids are prepared to get those jobs. We need to invest in that green energy, create a public, citywide internet utility, and fix our infrastructure so that our roads, water, and sewer are strong and safe for the next generation. In Holyoke, we have a clear choice. We can either continue the failed policies of the former mayor, or we can take a new direction. I know that together we can create opportunity in Holyoke and build a brighter, better future. I'm asking for your vote in November. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you, Candidate Sullivan. Candidate Garcia, please.
Yeah, I just want folks to know that in our form of government here in the city of Holyoke, it's antiquated. And that means that the mayor is the city manager. And if you've never done the job before, that means learning curves. Learning curves are expensive. It impacts the quality of services, and it ultimately impacts the tax rate. So Mike and I all day can talk about strategies around economic development. We can talk about public safety. We can talk about education, the moratorium issue, the city internet. But understand that each of these functions are highly and very dependent on how well we manage and operate our resources and our internal services. And that's what separates me from the candidate. I've been very fortunate to have the regional as well as the local municipal experience to work from the bottom up and the middle out, collaboratively with other stakeholders to achieve the very issues that are in front of us. And so that's what you can expect from me as your next mayor, not top-down, Mr. CEO, big boss man attitude, but instead a mayor that can work. We've often hear about this disconnect between the council and the mayor's office. We want to be able to work collaboratively together to effectively tackle the quality of life issues that are impacting all of us. So that is why on November 2nd, I really hope that you consider voting for me. Hopefully tonight I've earned that support. And if you want to learn more about me and what I can do or what we can do together, please go to garciaforholyoke.com. Thank you so much.
Gentlemen, thank you both so very much. Helene Florio from the Taxpayers Association will have just a few comments for us to close. And I've just got to say before she starts, I am so impressed with the committee that put this together this evening and the audience of all of you that are here. You've done a great job. Remember, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I think we've had a very interesting and even some fun tonight, which is tough to say at a candidates debate, but thank you. Thank you, Mr. Signoli, and a big thank you to the candidates from Holyoke who have participated in the campaign to become the next mayor of our great city. Mike Sullivan and Joshua Garcia, you have made it through the gauntlet here in Holyoke, and I want to thank you for both putting your individual lives out in public for more scrutiny than I'm sure you ever thought there could be. Thank you to all in our audience, here and at home, and thank you. Our goal has been to help assist you to become educated voters. Special thanks tonight to those who have made this all possible. Thank you again to the Holyoke Public Schools. Special thank you to Mr. Todd. When I was here yesterday checking on things, this stage was set up with all of his props for the play they are about to put on. They've worked hard here today. I thank the custodial staff here at the school, led by Jerry Lane. They've been terrific. The Holyoke Fire Department, the Holyoke Police Department, MIFA, Jeff Trask, who has been doing our live streaming over on the side, Stephanie Rivera, tucked away in the back room, helping with translation services, and Scott McPherson, who is the head of Holyoke Media. And also, I want to make sure that we all thank the people on the board of directors of the Holyoke Taxpayers Association. They've been spending a lot of hours, gone over lots of questions, and have been very helpful in bringing this information to the voters in the city of Holyoke. Lastly, a huge thank you to Anthony Tony Signoli for donating his services as moderator tonight. And there's just a couple of us here in this room who really know how special he turned out to be tonight. He came up with a lot of questions on his own. He was terrific. He brings the journalistic expertise of a Tim Russert, the former NBC moderator of Meet the Press, and the absolute unflappable temperament of WGBY's Jim Madigan to the event. Tony, thank you so much. The most important thing is that we all get to the polls and vote. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and when you go out, please drive carefully. See you November 2nd at the polls. Thanks, everybody.